Hello and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in today's presentation we're going to continue our theme by looking at the OpenAI API, and today we're going to look at generating images. Come on, let's see if we can find out how to do this. And here we are, and a big warm welcome, maybe not to the command line that you're used to, but you can see I'm in PyCharm running on my Ubuntu system. And we're going to be able to go through and take a look at the script and build upon our script so that we're able to use OpenAI to generate images for us. So this is what we're going to be taking a look at, extending what we've seen so far with our Python scripts and OpenAI, and just taking a look at what we have. And this script can be used pretty much as a boilerplate template for getting us up and running with a lot of things. We've got a simple import of the sys module and OS module for us to be able to use them for arguments and checking variables. We've got our try except block to make sure that we have exported the variable OpenAPI key, and then displaying the message, and then checking the length of our arguments to make sure we have provided an argument. So this is the very basics of the script. It doesn't do anything with our images at the moment, but we can go through and try and execute it. When I look at it inside of PyCharm, PyCharm doesn't access the exported variable. So we can see at least that works well for us. We're getting the correct error message. But if we move through to the command line and then go through and run the script, we can see then that we're being prompted to add our prompt to the script. So we're going to be running it from the command line. It makes it easier because we want to be able to provide our prompt. The prompt can then specify the type of image that we are looking for. And we could even extend it to add in additional prompts as well as we go through. But we can see now that our boilerplate template is working. We just have to go through and make sure that it can deal with our images. As always, if you do like these images, please hit the like, please hit the share button, please hit the subscribe button. It's going to help other people find these videos too. But as we continue into our script, I'm just going to add some variables to specify the image size. Again, we could build this into a prompt if we want, but it's just giving you an idea of what image sizes are supported by the backend model DAL-E. So we've got square, and it can be small, which is going to be 256 by 256 pixel. And then we might as well copy this down because we've got 3 square sizes. So we could call them maybe, I don't know, small, medium, and large. So let's go through and then just paste it down. And then paste it down again. Our medium, you can probably guess these sizes. It's going to be 512 by 512. And then our large is going to be 1024 by 1024. So let's make sure we put in those right sizes. 512 by 512, and then 1024 by 1024. Now, as well as the square sizes, we have tall and wide. And when we look at these, they're working in 1792 pixels by 1024. And the reverse of this, so we can call it tall. And then this is going to be 1024 wide by 1792 high. Now we need this to specify the image size that we want. Now obviously we could use the raw values, but then it kind of makes sense we put them in variables, especially so we don't get confused between wide and tall, and we know which element we're looking at first. So it's the width we're looking at first. We can then go through and have our image name. We don't really need this at the moment because we won't be saving our image. We just access it through our URL. But we might as well add it in for the moment. So let's save the image. So we can prompt to save the image. And we can make sure for ease, whatever the user types will be storing as lowercase. Okay, it doesn't really matter, but you might prefer just to deal with lowercase names. So the image is going to come back as PNG. We need to then specify the PNG image we want to save it as. We can set up, as we've seen this before, we can then go through and set up our client to be an instance of OpenAI, the OpenAI class. We could leave as is, but again, I rather prefer putting in the explicit notation that we can set our API key in the constructor to our API key variable. So that sets up our client that we can use. We can then go through and start connecting into the back-end system by setting up our response variable and populating it with our client object, and then going into images dot generate, and we can go through and specify the properties that we need to look at. So this is really then going through specifying what type of image we want, what model we want, what size of image we want. We can also see, I know you won't show on your screen, but the idea of using the IDE, it actually gives me a little bit of documentation about what I can put in here. So we can put in our model, and we're going to have DAL E3. We've really got a choice of DAL E3 or DAL E2, so we might as well use the later version. Put a couple of extra parentheses in, so let me tidy these up. We can go through and start specifying the prompt equals, and then that's going to be my prompt, which is going to be my sysargv1. We can specify the size. So this is where we can then go through and start putting in our literal values if we want, but we can also then use our variables. So we can decide that I want then large, so 1024 by 1024. And we can go through and specify the quality. So this could be standard, or we could put it for HD. So really looking at the resolution of the image. And we can also go through and say, how many images do I want? Obviously, I only really want one, but if I just get one, it might not be really the image that I want. So we could get maybe, 2 images or 6 images. But bear in mind, there's going to be a cost even if you don't use the images. So, be cautious on that. And images is one of the more expensive elements to use. They're still not desperately expensive, but start thinking of them maybe being 50 cents each. Whereas when we do queries, they're really, really inexpensive. Almost you don't notice them on your usage. Even yesterday when we were looking at our text to narration, our TTS, that uses very, very little credits. Our image URL is going to equal then what we get back coming from our response. And you can see the tab completion that we want, but we want response and data. And that URL will be a web-based URL that we can use for a day. It's a list that comes back, so we want the first element of the list and the URL. And let's say it doesn't last for a day. My mistake, sorry, it lasts for 1 hour. And then we want to display that, so let's go through and print the URL. And that's it. The code will run. We'll go through and get our URL coming back, and we can go into the browser to download it. So if I go back now and execute the script, so let's make sure we move into the images subdirectory, run the images script with our argument. So we can have, let's say, an anime head teacher in front of a class of students. You can choose the style that you want, and obviously you can choose what image you want. Now, say we've got the prompt for our image, so it doesn't really matter what I put in here because we're not downloading the image, we're just getting the URL. But let's just call it teacher.png. The request will have gone through now. They've got their pen and paper out, their coloured crayons, and they're busily drawing. And we can see then it's given us a URL back. Let's make sure we copy it. It doesn't seem to link the whole element. Jump into our browser. And we can see then the result coming back. Well, it might not have done it as anime, but it's certainly a reasonable image, and we might well be able to use this. So this is good. We've got kind of what we want, but then we might be a little bit annoyed about having to go back and download our image through our browser. Also, remember that only lasts an hour, so if we get caught on other things, the image might have gone. So we're still going to be charged for it because it was generated. So to be able to download the image, we're going to go back and start looking at our requests package as well. With our request package, we can then go through and make our web requests from the script. So we can actually download it really easily inside of our script. So if we go through and just start adding in a little bit of extra code, I know I've just pasted that in. But if we can then get it to settle a little bit, we can see then that we've got a response variable that is being set now to the requests.getImageURL. Now we can also see the requests at the moment have got the red squiggly line underneath, so we just need to make sure that we import our requests package. So we want to make sure that requests are going to work. So let's move back up and just run our import and requests. You might have to install this as well. So pip install requests. Mine's good to go. So now we can see that's working properly. There's no squiggly line. And we can see that if the response status code is 200, so we have got a response, then we're going to write our file to disk. As I go through and execute it again, we can, let's say, ask for maybe a vintage camper van. Again, we're still sticking with our square format. We can choose then to save it as vw.png. Again, the crayons are out. The artists are in action. We're going to be delivered both the URL, so we can still visit it on the website, but we're also going to have a PNG file locally, a PNG file then that we don't have to worry about downloading later. So we can allow this to chug on through. Must take a little bit longer to draw a VW van. But once it does come down, we're going to be able to go through into our browser, in our file browser and open up our image. Here you go, it's come down, so that was all in real time. Now that that has come down, we can still access the URL, but we can also then open up our file browser. We can move into our Python projects, into our images directory, and there you go, there's our glorious image. And what a lovely VW camper van they've drawn for us. And how nice, they've even put a little picnic table right in front. So hopefully this gives you an idea of then how you can generate your images from the command line of your Linux system.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.